The villagers of Amagu used to say that some children come into the world with a quiet breeze, some with a loud cry, and some with a sign. But on the night Sarah was born, the entire village felt a shift, as if the earth itself had breathed differently. It was a night of heavy clouds, the kind that covered the moon like a widow hiding her face. The wind moved slowly through the palm trees, brushing the thatched roofs, whispering a strange warning. The pregnant woman inside the small mud hut, Nanica, screamed as her contractions tore through her like lightning. The midwife, an old woman named Mama Nanica, kept wiping her sweat and muttering prayers under her breath. Adakwa am Anya. This child is coming with fire, Mama Nanica whispered. As the final push came, a blinding bolt of lightning cracked across the sky, shaking the ground. And then, silence. The baby did not cry. The midwife panicked. Chinikemo. The child is not breathing. But just as she reached to tap the newborn's feet, the baby opened her eyes. Eyes so bright, so clear, so unsettling that the midwife stumbled back in fear. The newborn looked directly at her, unblinking, as though studying her soul. And then a tiny voice, soft yet strange, formed in Mama Nwanica's mind. Not spoken, not heard, but felt. Everything will be fine. She dropped the baby in shock, catching herself immediately and holding the child close, trembling. The baby blinked once, closed her eyes, and finally let out a cry. Loud, strong, and deep like the call of an ancestral gong. That was how Sarah came into the world. From the moment she learned to walk, the villagers noticed something unusual about her. Sarah would wander around the compound, touching leaves, rubbing her little hands across the mud walls as if greeting each thing she encountered. But nothing about her seemed out of place, until the day she predicted her father's return. Her father, Obi, had traveled to the next village for market business. It was early afternoon when 3-year-old Sarah suddenly stopped playing, turned to her mother, and said, "Mama, Papa is coming home now." Nanica looked at her in confusion. "He said he will return tomorrow, my child." But Sarah shook her head. "He is almost at the palm tree near the stream." Before Nanica could laugh or scold her for lying, they heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Moments later, Obi appeared, carrying his raffia bag and smiling widely. Nanica was shocked. Obi was confused. And Sarah simply continued playing as though nothing happened. That was only the beginning. She predicted rainfall when the sun was burning. She warned a boy about a snake in a bush, moments before the snake appeared. She pointed to a pregnant woman's belly and whispered, "It's twins," and she ended up being right. At 4 years old, she looked at a new bride and said, "Don't cry. Your husband will change." Nobody understood how she knew the bride had been beating her chest quietly at night. Sarah saw everything. Not with her eyes, not with her ears, with something deeper. Some villagers called her a blessing. Some whispered that she was a spirit child. Some feared her. Many respected her. But the one person who feared and hated her the most was the very woman who should have loved her. Adora, her stepmother. Adora came into Obi's life after Nanica died of a brief illness when Sarah was 5. Obi, grieving and lonely, made the mistake of choosing a woman whose beauty covered her insecurity like a wrapper hiding a crack in the wall. From the first day Adora entered the compound, she watched Sarah with narrow eyes. She saw how villagers greeted the little girl before greeting her. She noticed how men looked at Sarah's calmness with admiration. She hated how Sarah's presence dimmed her own beauty. "People talk too much about that girl," she complained one night. "They say she sees things. They say she knows things. Is she a child or a masquerade?" Obi only laughed and said, "Leave her. She is special. Special." That word burned Adora like hot pepper in a wound. She wanted to be the special one. She wanted admiration, attention, importance. But every time she passed the market square, someone would say, "Have you heard? Sarah predicted that the flood will not reach our farms this year. Have you heard? Sarah said the missing goat is behind Matsi Okoro's barn," and it was true. Everywhere Adora went, Sarah's name followed like a shadow she couldn't escape. And when people started calling Sarah the girl who sees tomorrow, Adeora's jealousy changed into something darker. Hatred. It was on the eve of the New Yam festival when Adeora's bitterness reached its peak. Sarah had just seen something again, something that brought the whole compound to attention. She ran into the house, panting, her small chest rising and falling. "Papa!" Tell Mama Adora not to go to the stream. Tell her. Adora frowned, irritated. Why? Have you seen your spirits again? Or is it your childish fear? Sarah shook her head, trembling. I saw the branch fall. I saw it hit your head. Don't go. Obi held Adora's arm. My wife, please stay home today. But Adora pulled her arm away violently. Do you expect me to obey this child? A child who behaves as if she is above everybody. Ignoring the warning, Adora went to the stream. But she did not return the same way. Just as Sarah had said, a heavy tree branch snapped and crashed beside her, missing her by only a few inches. She came home screaming and shaking, more frightened than wounded. Instead of gratitude, instead of relief, she snapped. She stormed into the house, grabbed Sarah by the wrist, and dragged her outside. Who are you? She screamed. Are you truly a human child? Sarah fell to her knees, crying. Mama, please. Don't call me Mama. Adora shouted. You are the reason people look down on me. You are the reason they mock me. They respect you more than me. Obi rushed out, shocked. Adora, what is this madness? But Adora was beyond reason. Her anger, her jealousy, her insecurity, all exploded at once. She raised her hand to the sky and screamed words she did not fully understand. If you must see, then may darkness be your companion. Let blindness cover your eyes. Let your visions torment you. The air grew heavy. The wind stilled. A strange hush fell over the compound. And Sarah screamed. Her small hands flew to her eyes as unbearable pain shot through them. Then, darkness. Complete, eternal darkness. Adora gasped as she realized what she had done. Obi fell to the ground, wailing like a man whose soul had been torn apart. And Sarah, trembling, whispered in a broken voice. I can't see. The villagers rushed in. Some said Adora had invoked a forbidden curse. Some said Sarah's gift had angered unseen forces. Some said powerful destinies always attract enemies. But one thing was clear. Sarah, the child who saw tomorrow, had lost her sight. Yet the strangest part was this. Even in her blindness, she lifted her face toward the sky and said softly, I can still see. And that moment, that soft whisper in the middle of tragedy, was when Sarah's true story really began. Silence hung over Amagu village for many days after the curse. People walked past Obi's compound with quiet footsteps, whispering prayers under their breath. Some shook their heads in pity. Some avoided looking at the house entirely, as if afraid that blindness might jump from Sarah's eyes into theirs. Inside the mud-walled room where she lay, little Sarah sat on a bamboo mat, her thin fingers tracing the patterns of woven raffia. It had been 3 days since her stepmother cursed her, 3 days since the world turned into a black cloth wrapped tightly around her existence. But the strangest part was this. Even in that darkness, Sarah felt something moving. Not shadows, not shapes, something deeper. As though the world had opened a new door for her, a door without light. Obi sat in the corner of the room, his elbows on his knees, his face buried in his palms. He had barely eaten since the night Sarah lost her sight. His beard, normally trimmed, now spread across his jaw like wild grass. Neighbors came to console him, but grief sat on him like a heavy mortar. Every few minutes, he looked up at his daughter and whispered, "NWM, forgive me. I failed you." Sarah always shook her head gently, her eyes blank but strangely serene. "Papa, you didn't fail me." Obi's voice broke. "I should have stopped her. I should have taken you away." But Sarah tilted her head as if listening to something no one else could hear. "Everything will turn out fine." Those were the same words she spoke the day she was born, the day she opened her eyes for the first time. Obi heard them now, and his heart tightened in his chest. How could a blind child sound so certain, so confident, so aware? Adora had not stepped out of her hut since the incident. She sat alone, far from Obi and Sarah, shivering even in the midday heat. Her beautiful skin now looked dull, as if guilt was drinking the shine from her body. Every knock on the door made her jump. Every rooster's crow made her flinch. Some said she deserved it. Some said she had invoked a curse greater than she understood. Some whispered that the ancestors were waiting for her at night, standing behind her like quiet judges. But no one hated Adora as much as she hated herself. She watched from a distance whenever Obi fed Sarah or led her around the compound. Sometimes Sarah stumbled, falling on the hard earth, and Adora's heart twisted like a rope pulled too tight. But pride, Pride glued her feet to the ground. Pride sealed her lips every time she wanted to say, "I'm sorry." Instead, she stayed silent, watching her own darkness grow. On the 7th night after the curse, the moon was unusually bright. It threw long silver shadows across the compound, making the trees look like tall spirits watching over the world. Sarah sat outside her hut, facing the direction of the breeze. Her empty eyes stared at nothing. Her fingers played with sand. Her breath was steady. Obi sat beside her, sharpening a piece of wood to make a walking stick for her. The scraping sound filled the silence. Suddenly, Sarah spoke. "Papa." "Yes, my daughter? I know who is coming." Obi frowned. "Coming? Who?" But before she could answer, they heard hurried footsteps. Then a soft, trembling voice called from outside the gate. "Obi, may I come in?" It was Mama Nanica, the old midwife who had delivered Sarah into the world. Obi quickly stood up and opened the gate for her. The old woman walked in, her eyes full of worry. "I have come," she said, sitting down beside Sarah, "because this child was never meant for ordinary things." Obi swallowed hard. "Mother, what do you mean?" Mama Nanica placed her wrinkled palm on Sarah's head. "I felt it the night she was born. She carries something that is older than your lineage, older than this village, older than any priest living today." Sarah's fingers paused on the sand. The old woman continued, her voice lowering into a whisper. "Blindness cannot stop someone like her. In fact, it might have awakened what she was truly meant to be." Obi breathed deeply, fear and hope wrestling inside him. "Mother, she is only a child." Mama Nanica shook her head. "No, she is a vessel, a bridge, a message." She turned Sarah's face towards her. "What do you see now, my child?" Sarah opened her blank eyes and whispered, "I see hearts." The wind suddenly grew stronger. Obi and Mama Nanica leaned forward, confused. Sarah's small fingers trembled. "I see people's hearts. Their truth. Their lies. Their fears. Their future." Mama Nanica gasped. Obi's knife slipped from his hand, falling to the ground. Sarah continued, "I see Papa's heart, full of sorrow but still bright like morning sun." Obi covered his mouth with his hands as tears filled his eyes. "I see Mama Adiora's heart, dark but crying, crying so loudly." The wind stilled. Silence swept through the compound. Then Sarah added in a soft, faraway voice, "And I see someone coming. Someone who must teach me." "Teach you what?" Obi whispered. Sarah's lips parted. "To use what I carry." Mama Nanica stood abruptly, fear gripping her. "Obi, someone beyond this village has heard of her. Someone powerful. Someone ancient. Prepare yourself." Obi's hands shook. "Prepare myself for what?" The midwife looked at the sky, her eyes reflecting the moon. "For the path you cannot stop. The destiny she cannot escape." That night, while the household slept, Sarah sat in the darkness, her blind eyes wide open. She could see nothing, yet she saw too much. She saw a woman crying in a distant hut. She saw two boys stealing yams behind the barn. She saw the village chief hiding a secret letter under his mat. She saw her father dreaming of Nanica, whispering her name in his sleep. She saw everything. Everything except light. Her blindness was not a cage. It was a key. And as she lay down on her mat, she whispered to herself, "I am not blind. I only stopped seeing the world so I can see its truth." Outside, the wind carried her words toward the forest, toward the mountains, toward an unknown place where a figure, an old figure, opened his eyes as if awakened from a long sleep. And he whispered, "The girl has awakened." Far away from Amagu, past the river that curled like a snake through the forest, past the sacred grove where young men never dared to whistle at night, past the giant irako that elders said held the memories of ancient spirits. A small fire burned in a lonely hut. An old man sat beside it. His name was Dibia Okike. Some called him a healer. Some called him a prophet. Some whispered he was older than the village itself. He had been resting, half asleep, when a sudden wave, of force, and energy, washed through him. It was so strong that he sat upright immediately. "The child's eyes have opened," he murmured. He smiled, revealing the gaps in his teeth. "It is time." The next morning, he began his journey to Amagu. Dawn broke gently over the village, painting the sky in pale orange strokes. Women swept their compounds, goats bleated, and smoke rose from cooking fires. Sarah sat under the big mango tree, her empty eyes turned slightly upward, sensing the warmth of the rising sun. She felt peaceful, until a sudden tremor passed through her small body. Someone was coming again. Not the usual villagers. Not neighbors. Someone different. Someone old. Someone heavy with secrets. Before she could speak, Obi stepped out of the hut, tying his wrapper around his waist. Then they heard it. The slow, rhythmic tap of a staff on the ground. Tuck, tuck, tuck. All eyes turned toward the village entrance. Dibia Okike walked slowly, leaning on a long staff adorned with cowries and feathers. His gray hair fell down his back like ancient river weed. His eyes, though old, were sharp, too sharp. Women gasped. Children hid behind their mothers. Elders exchanged wary glances. This was not a man one met casually. As he approached Obi's compound, Sarah whispered, "He is the one." Obi's heart skipped. "The one who will teach you." Sarah nodded. The old Dibia stopped at the gate and lifted his face toward the hut. "Obi," he said, his voice deep like thunder rumbling beneath the ground. Obi came forward, kneeling. "Welcome, wise one. How do you know my name?" The Dibia chuckled softly. "I know many things, but I have come for only one." His eyes moved slowly, gently, until they rested on Sarah, the child who sees without eyes. The air around them thickened. Even the birds stopped singing. He stepped inside without being invited, as though the earth had opened the path for him. Sarah sat calmly, her fingers curled on her lap. The Dibia knelt before her, their faces only inches apart. "Child," he said softly, "do you know why the curse did not destroy you?" Sarah shook her head. "Because your gift was never in your eyes. Your eyes were only a window. When the window closed, the room became clearer." He placed his hand on her forehead. A warm light, felt, not seen, spread through her body. Sarah shivered. "What do you feel?" he asked. "Voices," she whispered. "Thoughts. Secrets. They are loud." The Dibia nodded. "Yes. Without guidance, your gift will drown you. But with training, you will command it." Adora watched from behind the hut, trembling. She heard every word. The guilt inside her grew heavier, swelling like a calabash filled with trapped air. Dibia Okike turned his head sharply, straight toward where she hid. "Come out." Adora froze. "Come out, Adora." She stepped forward slowly, her hands shaking. The Dibia studied her for a long moment. "You cursed her," he said simply. Adora fell to her knees, sobbing. I didn't mean to. I was angry, jealous, foolish. Please undo it. Please." The Dibia shook his head gently. "The curse cannot be undone." Adora wailed. "But," the Dibia continued, "it can be transformed." Her crying stopped. "What do you mean?" He pointed at Sarah. "Her blindness is no longer your curse. It is now her power. What was meant for destruction will be her strength." Adora burst into tears again, this time from relief and shame intertwined. The Dibia turned back to Sarah. "Stand up." She did, steady and calm. "I will teach you only one lesson," he said. "Only one, but it will guide your entire life." He placed both hands on her shoulders. "When you look at someone, do not ask, 'What do they show?' Ask instead, 'What do they hide?' It is hidden things that destroy destinies." Sarah nodded. "And now," the Dibia said, stepping back, "show me what you see." Sarah inhaled. The wind shifted. The trees bent slightly. Her blind eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but with awareness. "I see Amagu," she whispered. "I see its hearts. I see its secrets." Her voice deepened, not in tone, but in weight. "I see a mother hiding a pregnancy she fears. I see a boy who will soon run away from home. I see a man who plans to steal his brother's land. I see a girl crying because her father beats her at night. I see people dying with truths locked in their chests." The villagers who had gathered around gasped, trembling. Some clutched their wrappers. Some fell to their knees. Some hid their faces. Sarah lifted her chin slightly. "And I see Mama Adora," she continued softly. "She is breaking inside. Her heart is dark, but it wants light." Adora collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Sarah took a step toward her, slowly, feeling the earth, listening to its quiet hum. When she reached Adora, she touched her gently. "I forgive you." Adora cried harder, her tears soaking the soil. Can you ever see again?" she whispered, shaking. Sarah smiled faintly. "I see more now than I ever did." Dibia Okike tapped his staff on the ground. "Your training is complete." Obi blinked rapidly. "That quickly?" "She only learned. I taught her nothing, The Dibia interrupted. She already knew. I only opened the door. He turned to Sarah one last time. You will walk in darkness, but your path will always shine. People will fear your gift, but they will need it. You will see the truth others hide, even from themselves. Sarah bowed her head. Thank you. The old man smiled with tired eyes. The world has not seen a child like you in many generations. Use your sight wisely. He turned and began his long journey back into the forest, his staff tapping rhythmically. Tuck, 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 until his figure faded into the morning haze. Weeks passed. Sarah no longer stumbled around the compound. She moved with quiet confidence, following the sound of steps, the feel of vibrations in the earth, the whisper of hidden truths riding on the breeze. People from nearby villages began to visit Obi's home. A woman who miscarried 3 times came to ask Sarah what she needed to do. A young man whose dreams tormented him came seeking peace. A palm wine tapper who saw a strange shadow near his house wanted answers. And Sarah told each person what she saw, with calmness beyond her years. Some left crying, relief. Some left shaken, truth. Some left grateful, guidance. Sarah became known far and wide as the blind seer of Amagu, the child who sees hearts, the one who walks in darkness but speaks light. Adora, humbled, became her protector, carrying her walking stick, guiding her around, shielding her from the sun, loving her with a heart reborn. And Sarah walked into her destiny fully. She had lost her eyes. Yes, but she had gained the world's hidden eyes. And as she sat beneath the mango tree one quiet evening, the breeze lifting her braids gently, she whispered the same words she spoke the day she was born. Everything will be fine, because she had already seen it.